Valerie was sitting on her kitchen table, staring out the window that viewed the front yard. She tapped her feet and kept checking the time. Why was Alvin so late today? Valerie was waiting for her husband. She called him right before he was supposed to leave the office, about 2 hours ago, and he still hasn't arrived home. Alvin worked at a bank in downtown Sacremento, California, only 30 minutes away from his home. Suddenly, the bell rang. Valerie rushed to open it. Al, what took you so long? Do you know how long I've been waiting for you? It was one of my colleagues, Jacob. You remember him? He was at our Thanksgiving party last year. His car broke down, so I dropped him off back home. He wouldn't let me leave without meeting his family. I was kind of forced into having dinner over there. His wife Anna packed you some dessert. Valerie took Alvin's jacket and put it away in the closet. She opened up the parcel Jacob's wife sent. Anna had packed her a beautifully made cake. Who can forget last year's party? It was so embarrassing. Do you remember what happened to Anna? We've got to make it up to them. Let's invite them sometime. After Alvin freshened up, Valerie made him a nice hot cup of cocoa while she finished having her dinner. She was looking forward to having dessert. She cut herself a piece of cake. This looks delicious. Let me cut you a piece. No, Val, I'm really full. You know I'm not a fan of cake anyways. Enjoy yourself. Alvin and Valerie wrapped up the night and went to bed. A few hours into the night, Valerie woke up with severe pain in her stomach. Her heart was beating rapidly. Her body trembled. She barely managed to wake up her husband before she lost consciousness. Alvin immediately called an ambulance. The paramedics were quick to respond, but Valerie passed away before they could reach help. Alvin was devastated. He sat in the hospital waiting area holding his head. He couldn't understand what happened, how it happened. Just until the police arrived. They took Valerie's body to the laboratory for investigation. After thorough reports returned from the forensic department, the police set out on investigation. Alvin was stunned to find out Valerie passed away due to poisoning. But from what? They ran a search through Valerie's home. Soon, the police got their hands on the first clue to solving the case. After all food items were analyzed at the laboratory, the toxic substance found in Valerie's body matched that of the cake. Mr. Keller, I'm afraid it's this cake that was poisoned. This wasn't homemade, I assume. Where did you buy this from? Alvin stumbled down to his chair. He was shattered. I was the one who brought the cake home. Right after Alvin got a call from Valerie, his mother called him. She wanted him to come over for dinner. Alvin knew Valerie was waiting for him, but he couldn't let his mother down. And there was no way Valerie could know Alvin was visiting his mother either. Valerie and Alvin's mother never got along. And Alvin was the one to be stuck in the middle. After one of their arguments, Valerie was infuriated. She had reached her melting point. Alvin, I've had enough. You won't visit her, you won't talk to her. If you don't cut ties with your mother, you might as well end all relationship with me. It will be either me or your mother, because it can't go on like this. All right. Calm down, Valerie. It will be as you wish." It was since then that Alvin kept it a secret from Valerie if he ever happened to visit his mother. That night, he had dinner at his mother's house. She prepared all his favorite things for him, which he enjoyed to his fill. "Son, I made you this cake. It turned out lovely. I know you'll enjoy it." "Mom, you know I really never liked cake." "Please, after raising you all these years, you think I don't know what you like? Try it out. It's my special recipe." "All right, Mom. But only because you made it. Why don't you pack it for me?" Of course, his mother didn't let him go immediately. Alvin ended up conversing with his lonely mother about this and that until nearly another hour was over. Fortunately, Alvin thought of an excuse to make it back home. As soon as Alvin got the chance to leave his mother's house, he ran to his car. He was really late. Valerie might get suspicious. He'd have to make up some explanation for the cake. He had no wishes in eating it, and he knew his mother made it with lots of love. He felt bad to just throw it away. "Al, what took you so long? You know how long I've been waiting for you?" It was one of my colleagues, Jacob. You remember him. He was at our Thanksgiving party last year. His car broke down, so I dropped him off back home. He wouldn't let me leave without meeting his family. I was kind of forced into having dinner over there. His wife Anna packed you some dessert. "But officer, my mother couldn't have done this. She made that cake for me, not for Valerie. My mother wouldn't try to kill me. I'm her only son. There must be something more to this." "Then perhaps it was not your mother. It was you. You put the poison in the cake." "How can you allege me? I loved my wife." After a long interrogation, the police immediately set out in search for Alvin's mother, Mrs. Keller. "Hello, Mom. What brings you here, my son? Who's this?" "I'm Officer Pete from BIIPD. Mrs. Keller, did you recently bake a cake for your son?" "Yes, I have. Why?" "It was found that the cake had been poisoned." "How can that be?" "We have evidence that goes against you, Mrs. Keller. Why did you do this?" "Officer, it must have been some mistake. My mother couldn't have done this." "What nonsense is this? I made that carrot cake at home. I used my own homegrown carrots from the garden. I made it for my son." The next day, the officers searched Mrs. Keller's house and her garden. 2 poisonous hemlock plants were found amidst Mrs. Keller's carrots, the ones she must have used to make the cake. The ordinary person wouldn't have been able to distinguish the difference between a hemlock root and a carrot root. There was no antidote to hemlock poisoning. Alvin was simply lucky, and Mrs. Keller had escaped a horrible fate because she had diabetes. She didn't eat the cake herself. Unfortunately, Valerie fell victim to a small mistake. What have I done? I knew you would turn out to be like this. I should have objected at the wedding. You're nothing but a succubus. You wicked thing. You have spellbinded my son. Barbara, watch what you say. We may not get along, but that doesn't give you a right to speak to me like that. Do I have to learn things from you now? Don't tell me how I should behave, you mannerless demon. I should have warned my son of your evil presence the moment he brought you to this house. Barbara, have you lost your mind? Have you gone insane? Talk about manners. I've never seen a woman more intolerable and senile than you. If only your son were spellbinded by me, I wouldn't have to bear this nonsense. What is going on, Valerie? How can you speak like that to my mother? Alvin, I knew this girl would ruin you. I don't see a bright future for you with this girl. I'm afraid you made a big mistake. Mother, I apologize on behalf of Valerie. Perhaps she was in a bad mood. She didn't mean to say what she did. You don't have to apologize, my son, for that rude young woman's behavior. I'm just afraid one of these days she'll convince you to keep away from me. I'll be all alone in my last days, weeping myself to a miserable end. What are you saying, Mother? You took care of me. You brought me up. I'll always be there for you. Apologize? Me? Valerie couldn't take her mother-in-law's constant drama anymore. Mrs. Keller was always ready to villainize Valerie in front of Alvin. Mrs. Keller would say anything and everything about Valerie to get Alvin on her side. Valerie had been tolerating her mother-in-law since the day she married Alvin, and all she had seen was her mother-in-law be successful in influencing her son one way or the other. And Alvin? Valerie, you went over the line today. How could you insult my mother? Insult her? She has totally brainwashed you, hasn't she? Do you ever see the way she treats me? Did you hear what she called me? A succubus? Do you have any feelings for me at all? How can you be so blinded? We can talk about that later. Call her up and apologize now. Never. She doesn't deserve an apology. Alvin was his mother's only son. Valerie knew there was no way she could take Mrs. Keller out of his life. She cried in the privacy of her room. She had to make things right. Perhaps there was something Valerie could do. Valerie foraged through some wild bushes. She knew Mrs. Keller always had a hobby of gardening, and Valerie was searching for the perfect gift to make it up to her, something unique. Valerie dug into the ground with her gloved hands and rooted the toxic hemlock. On the next opportunity, she made her way to Mrs. Keller's house, to her garden. She beautifully planted the hemlock, but not just anywhere. Right in the middle of Mrs. Keller's carrots. Perfect. Now let's see how long you keep getting lucky, Mrs. Keller. I'll be waiting for that special day. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.